When many people think of the most influential people in the history of the Catholic Church, they think of people like Augustine, Francis of Assisi, Thomas Aquinas, and John Paul II. A list of people who are, undoubtedly, all men. While the history of the Catholic Church is admittedly dominated by men, women throughout the ages have left their mark in significant and inspiring ways as well. Who are these women, and what can we learn from their witness today? This is Catholicism in Focus. First on our list is Clare of Assisi, the rich noble of the 13th century who became a companion of St. Francis and the foundress of the Poor Clares. Not to mention a pretty resolute woman that knew how to get what she wanted in a man's world. In her time, women were not free to live as the brothers did, entirely poor and without land. Monasteries were supposed to be well endowed, providing self-sufficiency and protection to women who could not work or defend themselves. But Clare, being inspired by St. Francis's witness, did not want comfort or security. She wanted poverty. And so she demanded that the sisters not only be able to live without anything of their own, but that they also be able to leave the monastery to beg for sustenance just like the men. This was a radical demand for a woman at her time, entirely unheard of. More than one pope attempted to force a rule onto her, making her out to be just like any of the other monasteries of women at her time, but she refused to give up. And it paid off. In 1216, she was granted a privilege of poverty, guaranteeing her autonomy from endowments, and on her deathbed, her rule of life, the first ever written by a woman, was officially accepted by the Church. She wanted to live the gospel as radically as she could, and she didn't let anyone tell her otherwise. Fast forward 150 years and we find a laywoman who is not only an intellectual mystic, but a powerful influence in both literature and politics. I'm speaking, of course, of Catherine of Siena, the first female doctor of the Church. Like Clare, Catherine's parents wanted her to get married, but she refused, deciding at 16 to dedicate her life to prayer. But rather than entering a monastery, she joined the Third Order of Dominicans, allowing her to remain active in the world. This soon proved to be a significant decision for the Church, as the reputation of her holiness spread and visitors began to seek her advice. Spending much of her day in prayer and study, she found time to entertain priests, laypeople, nobles, politicians, and even Pope Gregory XI, providing spiritual guidance to many. With the Great Schism of 1378, the Church in the West divided itself under the allegiance of three competing popes, and Catherine found herself in the thick of it all. She wrote diplomatic letters sharing her opinions on the matters of the world and spent her time praying for the unity of the Church. In 1970, she was declared a Doctor of the Church for the significant impact her spiritual writings had on the Church of her day and the modern world, becoming the first woman to receive this title. Up next is another Doctor of the Church, St. Therese of Lisieux, a saint known as the Little Flower, and who died at the age of only 24. A reminder to us that you don't have to be big or strong, nor do you have to grow to an old age to make a huge impact. Entering a Carmelite monastery in 1888 at just 15, one could hardly have expected extraordinary things from this little girl, but that was precisely her contribution to the Church. She was one who found great joy even in the mundane work of life and saw the extraordinary in the ordinary. Therese might be most famous for her line, "I prefer the monotony of obscure sacrifice to all ecstasies. To pick up a pin for love can convert a soul." Her life, though simple and uneventful, reminds the world that it is not about the heroic task that we accomplish that pleases God, but the love and dedication we bring to even the smallest things. Her little way, as it is called, is a reminder to people even today of how one can offer the tiniest of tasks to the glory of God and find joy in it. She is also a witness to the world of how to endure suffering with grace, as even after she contracted tuberculosis, a disease that would cause her much pain and ultimately take her life, she continued to work and pray without complaint. Her joy was not in earthly pleasures, but in dedication to the Lord. Of course, one does not need to be cloistered to be a holy woman, as Catherine Drexel clearly shows. Born to a wealthy family in Philadelphia in 1858, Catherine had the opportunity to travel much as a child, but it was not a posh life that defined her. When she witnessed the plight of Indian and Black Americans throughout the country, she knew that she needed to do something to help their condition. She began by raising money to finance efforts in the Southwest to staff the Indian missions, but in a visit with Pope Leo XIII in Rome, her life trajectory completely changed. The Pope suggested that she not just raise money, but that she become a missionary herself. And so she did. She became a nun, founding her own order dedicated to spreading the gospel to Black and Indian peoples, called the Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament. In her lifetime, she founded nearly 60 schools and missions, worked in hospitals and prisons, provided social services and religious education, and established the only predominantly African-American Catholic university in the United States, Xavier University of Louisiana. Sometimes, if you have a conviction, you can't wait for someone else to carry it out. You've got to go and live the mission yourself. Such was definitely the case for the next inspiring woman as well, albeit in a less than conventional way. What do you get when you combine a fiery advocate for the poor and labor rights with the Catholic faith? you get Dorothy Day. If you're looking for a prototypical holy woman, this is not your girl. Dorothy had a child out of wedlock, had a soft spot for some communist and anarchist tendencies, and practiced civil disobedience that led to her arrest on at least 4 occasions. And yet, Pope Benedict XVI lauded her conversion experience as a great example of how to journey towards faith in a secularized environment, and Pope Francis listed her in his speech before the United States Congress as an exemplary American who built a better future. So something's going on here. The long and short of it is that she was someone who tirelessly fought for those who could not protect themselves. She was an advocate for the poor and for labor workers and championed pacifist causes. Early in her life, she found a home in communist circles, but as she began to learn of the gospel and see the work of the church, she realized that there was another answer besides socialism and capitalism and began to advocate for the Catholic economic theory of distributism. Today, she's probably best known for founding the Catholic Worker Movement, intentional communities dedicated to live in accordance with the justice and charity of Jesus Christ, advocating for those on the margins. It grew in popularity in the 1930s with the regular publishing of the Catholic Worker newspaper, a political publication meant to offer Catholic stances on the issues of war, poverty, and labor. What makes her story so interesting is that, on the one hand, she represents a profound conversion from her hedonist and bohemian youth, and yet she never really abandoned her radical political stances. She allowed Catholicism to shape her, while she let her convictions shape the Catholicism of her day. Speaking of unconventional women who made a profound impact writing criticisms of the world around them, we have to mention one of the greatest American fiction writers of all time, and likely the strongest Catholic apologist in the South, Flannery O'Connor. When you think of a powerful Catholic apologist, you probably don't think of a frail, recluse woman from Savannah, Georgia, and yet here we are. The author of 2 novels and 31 short stories, O'Connor was known for her sardonic tone and exaggerated satirical style, creating deeply flawed characters to present a moral vision for the world. She often used absurd and deeply reprehensible situations filled with blind arrogance as cautionary tales to her readers, but also as a way to depict the unexpected and mysterious ways that God disrupts our lives to bring about redemption even in the most flawed of people. Her stories are often a mix of spirituality, sin, moral decay, and redemption, all with biting sarcasm that are equally profound as they are humorous. Despite rarely writing about Catholicism explicitly, her Catholic faith, particularly her love for the Eucharist, guided everything she wrote. In her most famous quote regarding the Eucharist, she once said, "Well, if it's just a symbol, to hell with it." Like Dorothy Day, Flannery O'Connor wasn't exactly the pious proper type, but she was prophetic. A title that, for all the people on this list, might most aptly apply to our final Catholic woman, Sister Thea Bowman. In a religious tradition that rarely hears women speak, let alone command the attention of a room full of men, Thea Bowman was an outlier. A convert to Catholicism rooted in the Southern African American Christian tradition, she had a voice, and she knew how to preach. Invited by the Bishop of Jackson, Mississippi, to serve as a consultant for intercultural awareness, she traveled the country giving presentations directed at breaking down racial and cultural barriers within the church, even addressing the bishops of the United States in 1989. And boy, was she charismatic and entirely unfazed to be speaking to a room full of men. You can find the whole address on YouTube if you want to watch, and I highly recommend it. Her ability to tell stories, move hearts with song, and compel people with the words of the gospel were so profound that she was even afforded the opportunity to teach seminarians how to preach, something you would not expect from a black woman in the middle of the 20th century. She inspired, she challenged, she brought joy to everyone she met, exemplifying the Franciscan charism while also making it her own. In a world torn by racial division, in a church desperate for more strong voices from women, Sister Thea Bowman is the model of a saint we need in our world today. Give me 100 more just like her, and we'll be just fine. Which is not to say that there aren't talented, loving, charismatic women like her already out there, or that there aren't models of Claire, Catherine, Therese, Catherine, Dorothy, or Flannery in our midst today. There are. There are holy women that are capable, inspiring, grounded in the gospel, and on fire for peace and justice all around us. The reason that we don't hear them, the reason that they don't appear in our history books, isn't that they aren't there. It's that they aren't being listened to or afforded the opportunity to speak. The church may have settled the question of a male-only priesthood, and I'm not here to challenge that. But I do wonder how we might amplify voices like these and find new and creative ways to let the feminine genius impact the church. There are just far too many faithful, inspiring, powerful female voices out there, and it is a tragedy that they don't get the attention they deserve. It's time that we change that.